So you're thinking about moving to China. Here's everything you need to know that other people are not going to tell you. My name is Megan. I have been a teacher in China for almost 15 years. This country is amazing, but it's not that foreigner friendly. So if you're thinking about coming, there are a couple of things you need to know about living in China. I'm sure you've already done a little bit of research, but let me tell you those things that might be difficult to find online. First, you need to download a VPN before you come to China. Now, I'm sure you know about the firewall. That just means that in China, a lot of foreign apps and websites like Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, Google, can't be used without a VPN, but you need to download that VPN before you enter the country. Now, if you're not sure what a VPN is, it just is a virtual private network. I'm sure you've seen a lot of people online get like sponsorships and talk about this because it changes your identity when you log onto the computer. So when I log onto the computer and it sees my location is in China, it won't allow me to access Google. But if I use my VPN and I log on and it shows that I'm in Canada, then suddenly I am able to. Now, a mistake a lot of people make is they arrive in China and try to set up and download and buy their VPNs, but you can't. For most things, you already need a VPN on your phone or on your computer in order to download another VPN. Now, there are a bunch of cheaper options once you enter the country, but my advice would be to download a reliable, trustworthy VPN before you land. That way you have a VPN and you can download another one if you want to change, but you need to have a VPN already on your device in order to download or change to a different one. Now, you can use any VPN you want. The one that I like is called Watopia. I've used it for almost 15 years and I've really enjoyed it. It's been really reliable. It also is one of the cheaper options out there. I can leave it linked down below. Not sponsored or anything like that. You can choose whichever one you want, but I've seen a lot of VPNs come and go, and this one has been reliable and steady for me for almost 15 years. Now, it is like a little bit annoying to have to spend that money every single year to pay for your VPN, but I just view it as like a business expense. If you're gonna live in China, it's something that you need, and I like to just bite the bullet, get Watopia, have it as a reliable option. That way I know I can always talk to my family, I can always access things like Google. Watopia is, I believe, around $70 or $80 a year. I find most VPNs are around $100. Definitely download the VPN before you land in China, because once you're here, you'll need a VPN on your device in order to download or change to a different VPN. Now, a question I get asked all the time is, do you need to learn Chinese in order to live and work in China? And my answer is twofold. I would say for work, no, you don't really need to learn Chinese. Your school should help you with everything. They should help you with the visa arrangements. There should be someone at the school. They're called usually an FAO, a Foreign Affairs Officer. Usually this person is Chinese and they can also speak English. So usually this is your go-to person. This is your contact person. If you have questions about the visa, if you have questions about the contract, if you have questions about your courses and your classes and your textbooks, you can go to this person for everything. They're the person that helps you communicate with the school, gives you all the information that you need to know. So from a work perspective, do you need to speak Chinese? Not really. From a student perspective, for me, even though I can speak a little bit of Chinese, I keep my classes 100% English. So when we're in the classroom, I don't use Chinese at all. We have an English environment, an English atmosphere for most of the higher level students. Now, you could change this, you could adapt it, of course. So from a work perspective, I don't think you need to learn Chinese, but from a life perspective, I would definitely suggest to start learning the language. Do you need to be fluent? Absolutely not. But for those daily parts of life, it will be more helpful. Your life will be a lot smoother if you're able to speak or understand at least the basics. We're talking bare minimum, because there are so many things you can do in China with your phone. We'll talk about that in a second, but you can get a taxi just using an app. You can order food just using an app. So it's okay if your spoken Chinese is not great, But for other daily life things, it just makes things go a little bit smoother. When you get in the taxi and the taxi driver starts talking to you to confirm your phone number or confirm your destination, you're able to handle it. When you go to the supermarket and they ask you, do you want to buy a bag or do you have a membership? You're able to answer these basic requirements. Now for me, I didn't plan on staying in China for a long time. So when I arrived, I didn't study Chinese formally. The only way I learned was just through being curious about the world around me. I would go to lunch with my students and I would literally point to the food and be like, what is this? How do you say this? If I had something I was struggling with, like I remember when I first came to China, they would always give me so much rice at the school cafeteria, and I didn't want them to give me so much rice. I wanted them to give me a smaller amount of rice. And that was one of the burning things that I really needed to know, because that was something that was affecting my life. So I just asked my students like, hey, can you give me a really short, really simple way to say, please don't give me so much rice. I want less rice. And they did. And I carried around this notebook with me and I would just write everything down that I needed to know. And I could carry around that notebook. When I first came to China, we didn't have smartphones, okay? Now it's so much easier, but I just learned from asking students. I learned from constantly reading signs. I learned from trying to read news articles in Chinese, just trying to watch Chinese movies and listen to other people and figure out what I needed to say. If you have the chance to study formally, grab that chance. But if you don't, you're able to learn quite a lot just by trying to bring Chinese into your environment a little bit more. So let me give you a couple of suggestions for that. Now, if you're talking about daily life things you need to know, WeChat is actually so amazing for this, because you can have your phone set in English, but also now WeChat has an option at the top that it can translate most of the apps and most of the articles for you into English. However, the translation is passable. Does it actually get the job done? Maybe not. So I also really love to use the app called Pleco. This is one of the best dictionaries for searching specific words. It doesn't work the best for phrases though. It doesn't work the best for translation. Sure, you can definitely use things like Google Translate to translate full sentences, but another tool that's really useful is called Lufeai. This one is really great because it's actually a browser extension that you can use onto your computer. It can definitely do that simple translation, just like Google Translate can do. So you can copy and paste things in and get the translation for it. Usually the translation is better than the ones on the Chinese apps like WeChat. You can also upload pictures and PDFs as well. So if you're getting a contract at your school, you'll probably get two, one in English and one in Chinese. And so if you just want to pop that contract into the translator just to make sure that the Chinese translation, the Chinese contract says everything that you think it says, that's a really easy way to do it. But what I really love about this extension is the fact that it will allow you to translate web pages, and it will give you an audio recording at the same time. So one of the things I used to use in the past was called Chinese Pod, and they had this system where they would give you an article in Chinese, but to be honest, Chinese Pod is quite expensive. So this is just a browser extension you can add on. And if you're reading a news article in Chinese, if there's a word you don't know, you can hover over it, you can highlight it, and you can get the translation for it. This is one of the best things I did to improve my reading and my vocabulary. And I know when I say news articles, that sounds really boring and it sounds really technical, but trust me, I'm not over there reading about economics and things like that. A lot of Chinese news is very... In America, we have, Good Morning America type news that's heartwarming, or just some news about health or news about some simple advancements. Just the other day, I saw a news article about a woman who rolled over in bed and broke her arm because she was really afraid of sun damage, and she protected her skin too much from the sun, and apparently that can make your bones brittle. So the news article was like, hey everybody, go outside, get a little bit of sun at least. Something like that is really useful for finding some vocabulary words that are used in daily life in common situations. Now, it was gifted to me, but I do have a link down below if you'd like to check it out. I found it really useful to study Chinese that way, to kind of integrate it into my daily life to constantly be reading and trying to discover new vocabulary words. So do you absolutely need to learn Chinese? No, you can survive. But your life and your experience is going to be a lot smoother, and of course you're going to be able to understand the culture and just have better experiences the more Chinese you're able to speak. All right, let's talk now about things you can't do as a foreigner. One thing you can't do as a foreigner, you can't rent any apartment you want. There are a lot of apartments and a lot of landlords that will not rent to foreigners. So that means when you're coming to China, maybe check with your school to see if they, one, have any type of like teacher dorm situation, or two, to see if they will help you find an apartment, because not every landlord will lease to a foreigner. Is that fair? It's just a fact of life. So it can take a little bit of time to find an apartment. Maybe keep that in mind. It might take a little bit longer than you expect. However, when I'm looking for apartments, I just make it very clear to whichever realtor I'm working with, make it very clear, foreigner here, only show me apartments I can actually rent. There's actually a very long list of things that foreigners can't do. Why? Because so many things in China are connected to your ID card. You don't have a Chinese ID card because you're not Chinese? There are tons of things you can't do, and some of them are so incredibly random. We have a bunch of ride-sharing bicycles, so you can just rent a bike and ride around the city. Two of the companies you can use as a foreigner, one of them you cannot use because you have to input your Chinese ID card, and it doesn't accept passports. Another random thing, if you go to the airport, a lot of times they have like the self-checking kiosks. Even though the machine says you can scan your passport, you might not be able to scan your passport. If you're on a high-speed train and you need to scan your passport to enter the train or exit the train, you can't do that. You need to go talk to the customer service agent and be at their machine. That's the only one that can scan passports, even though all the machines say that they can scan passports, and even some of the workers are like, what? Why isn't it working? And I have to explain to them that actually it doesn't work. There are these machines everywhere that have power banks. So if your phone is dying, you can just walk up to the machine and you can rent a power bank for a few hours to charge up your phone. Most of them don't work for foreigners, at least in Shenzhen. A lot of the hospitals, you can't actually book an appointment in advance. You have to go to the hospital and then just wait in line and get an appointment there, which is quite inconvenient and can make your hospital visits 2 to 3 hours longer. If you buy a high-speed train ticket, you can't change it. If you have a passport, you can't change it on the app. You have to actually go to the service station. So you'll find there are a lot of random things that you can't do. If you're finding that you're trying to do something and it's not working, just go talk to a human, go talk to a person, and maybe they can help you figure it out. If you're doing any kind of travel, get there a little bit earlier than you think you need to, because if your ticket or if your passport can't be scanned in the self-service checkout, it means that you have to wait in line with like the customer service line. And so many times I have almost missed my flight because the customer service line, as you could probably imagine, is full of problems. And so you're just kind of waiting there for all the other problems to be taken care of before you can just simply check in. Now it is getting better. They used to do this for trains and for everything else. It is getting better, but there's still a bunch of random things that you just can't do as a foreigner. I have an allergy medicine that I need to buy, and foreigners are not allowed to buy that specific type of medicine. There are just a bunch of random things that you might not expect. Just know it going into it. Know that there are some things you just can't do because almost everything is connected to real ID identification. And so if you have a passport, it's just going to be a little bit different. Let's talk about money. So you're making all of this money in China. Maybe you want to send it back home. Good luck. It is almost impossible for a foreigner to get money out of China. Sounds dramatic, I know, but it's kind of true. To be honest, you really can't do it by yourself. You almost always need a Chinese person's help. So you could have a Chinese person go to the bank with you because there are limits about how much money you can send out. For foreigners, it's quite a low number. And for Chinese people, the number is a little bit higher for them to send money out. Beware, going to the bank at just clear your calendar. If you're going to the bank, you're going to be there for the full day because it's very complicated. It's very complex. I have heard of a lot of different ways. There are a lot of different companies now that are popping up that help foreigners get their money out of China. I'm not even going to name any specifically in this video because probably by the time I post it, they'll be outdated because it's constantly changing regarding which companies are able to get out, which companies survive. Just know it's very difficult to get your money out of China. So if you were expecting to maybe come to China and send money home every month or something like that, really difficult, really complicated. If you do need to send money home, maybe do something like once or twice a year. That way you don't have to go through the hassle every single month. It's just really difficult to get your money out of China. Now, one thing I have found that I will say does work very well, but you need a Chinese person's help for, is if a Chinese person has PayPal and you also have PayPal and you send your money to your Chinese friend, they take their Chinese PayPal, they send it to your American PayPal, or for me, American PayPal, your foreign PayPal. I've found that works really well. You do have to pay some fees and you do need a Chinese person's help, but I have found that to work consistently over the last few years. So maybe that's something that you could try. In the past, I've also tried taking out RMB in cash and carrying it, of course, the legal amount, to carry it back to the States. But I found that my bank didn't really want to accept foreign currency in RMB, and so I found that was a little bit difficult as well. Just know it's really difficult to get money out of China. It's really complicated. It can be done, but it is not for the faint of heart. So if you're planning on sending money home all the time, maybe rethink your plans. Another thing to be aware of is your international driver's license will not work. There are a lot of places where you can use your foreign driver's license in another country, but you cannot use a foreign driver's license in China. And also, if you happen to have an international driver's license, you cannot use an international driver's license in China. You can only use a Chinese license in China. Now, I have heard of a special tourist license that if you're coming into China for an extended period of time on a tourist visa, you're allowed to apply for this special tourist driver's license. This is a little bit new and I've never tried it, but if you really do want to drive in China, you can actually go for a Chinese driver's license, and it's much easier than if you're a Chinese person because you already have a license. So if you're a Chinese person in China and you want to get a Chinese driver's license, you're going to need to take 4 tests, 2 written and 2 driving ones. The first test is the written exam. If you already have a driver's license in your home country, for example, I have my American driver's license. When I come to China and when I have my visa, I can then just take the first Chinese written exam, and I can take it in English now. And after that, I can get my driver's license. I don't have to take any of the driving tests because my American license already proves that I can drive. The first test is just to make sure you know the Chinese driving laws, just those rules. So if you are thinking about getting a car, driving, that is an option for you. You just have to study for the test. You just have to take the test. I can leave a link to the app down below. There's a special app that you can use that helps you study for the questions that are going to be on that test. Okay, and here's a fun one. Just like you can't rent any apartment. In the past, foreigners could not stay at any hotel. In the past, you could only stay at 4 and 5-star hotels or hotels that had been given a specific letter from the government that allowed foreigners to stay at their hotel. Was this annoying? I won't even go into all the times that I have been left alone wandering on the top of a mountain at 3 a.m. or all the times that I've flown in and gone to the hotel and they say you can't stay here and I had to find another hotel last minute. However, you might have noticed I've been using past tense because this is no longer a law. The Chinese government said foreigners are allowed to stay at every hotel in the country. However, so many hotels still either don't know this or don't abide by it. Just last month, I was traveling to Qingdao and I booked my hotel and they sent me a message saying that foreigners are not allowed to stay in that hotel, which is not true. According to the Chinese government, foreigners can stay everywhere, but just know that's something that might happen to you when you're traveling. Something I have used for years is an app and a website called hotels.com, because I've found that all of the hotels on that app accept foreigners. When I used other apps like booking.com or trip.com, sometimes I would book the hotel and then I would arrive and they'd say, oh, no, we can't accept foreigners. But on hotels.com, I've always found hotels that allow me to stay. So I just have, since I've lived in China, I've just always booked through hotels.com and I've been able to avoid those problems. Anytime I didn't book through hotels.com, we had a problem. But as of today, 2025, you should be able to stay in any hotel in China. If I'm honest, I could probably do a part 2 on this because there are so many things that you just don't know until you get here and you find out there's so many weird little quirks or differences. But if you'd like to see a part 2, let me know. If you have any other questions, maybe about something else, let me know as well. That's all for today. You can check out some other videos that I've made all about what you should know before moving to China. I can leave those linked down below. I also have a ton of other videos about how to improve your teaching or just vlogs about life in China. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you next time. Bye.